Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. So this is a video in continuation to the last video in which I explained you the basics of Factories Act. So here we are going to continue with the Factories Act, and my name is C.S. Neha Challa. So this is the second part of Factories Act 1948 that is there in the CMA Inter course. So here we are going to talk about health measures and welfare measures that every occupier has to make sure that he provide these facilities to the workers who are working in his factory. Okay, so the first health measure that we are going to talk about is cleanliness. Okay, so every factory, wherever any factory you see, so in that factory there should be a clean environment. Okay, and it should be free from effluvia. Effluvia is nothing but the smell. Okay, so any work area, all or you already know, it should be free. If there is any bad smell or something, workers cannot work properly. And because of this uncleanliness or because of the smell also, sometimes there can be some diseases that humans can contract. Okay, so in order to avoid this, every factory should be clean. And as you can see in the photo, the floors, the benches of workmen, the staircases and passages, all these things should be clean and any dirt on them should be removed. Okay, and we should also clean the floor of the workrooms in which the workers are working. At least once in every week we should also wash them with disinfectant. Okay, so this is nothing but we are providing clean environment for all the workers to work in the factory. Also, there should be an effective drainage system. See, if the drainage system is not proper, if the water or if the drainage, if the used water is not being flown properly, that also can create some uncleanliness in the factory, because of which people can again contact diseases. So we should also ensure that walls and roofs of this particular drainage system should be kept clean. So that is about cleanliness. I hope it is clear. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So moving ahead, here we are going to see about some things that every factory have to do within these years or months. Okay, so there are 2 points relating to 14 months, there are 2 points relating to 5 years. Okay, so at least in every 14 months I should get my factory whitewashed or color washed, like you can see in the photo. Also, in every 5 years, see, some surfaces you can only paint, some surfaces you can only wash. So if they are washable, every 6 months you can wash them. If they are not washable, then you will have to get them paint or varnished or any repairs or anything. All these things you will have to do at least once in 5 years. Also, moving ahead, if there are any smooth surfaces, any smooth even surfaces which are not peeping inside, which are very smooth, so in that case you will have to get it cleaned in every 14 months. Also, these panes, doors and windows that you can see in the photo, so the doors and windows should also be painted or varnished once in at least 5 years. So this is about cleanliness when it comes to a factory. I hope this is clear, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So there has been a question which was asked in December 2017 for 5 marks. Write a short note on the following term, which is cleanliness of factory. So you will have to write this point and all the other 4 points. That is when you will get 5 marks. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the next point. So the next point that we are going to do is about disposal of waste and effluents. So as we already spoke about, if there is any harmful product, if there is any harmful thing in the waste that a factory is producing, so before treating them, I cannot release it in the environment. So as a factory owner, I should make proper arrangements to treat this particular waste. Once the waste is free from all the defects, only then I can release it into the environment. So this is about the second point. I hope this is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So moving on to the next one. ventilation and temperature. So any workspace, any workroom, there should be proper ventilation where fresh air can come, and the temperature also in the workroom should be adequate to the human body. It should not be too hot, it should not be too cold also. Okay, see, sometimes what happens in some particular manufacturing processes, a certain type of temperature has to be maintained. Okay, suppose a worker is working too much with fire or something, the temperature will be very high. So in such cases, I should take adequate measures so that these processes are separate, and the temperature that I am providing, if at all it is very high, I should try to insulate some hot parts or some effective means which is suitable for a particular person to go and work there. I should probably give him a proper gear to go and work there, proper uniform, proper caps or everything, so that the temperature is suitable for humans also to go and work. So whenever any manufacturing process involves high temperatures, I should take adequate measures in order to control that particular temperature. Otherwise, every room should have proper ventilation and proper temperature. So I hope this is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So moving on to the next one, this is dust and fume. So any factory should not have any, if at all there is any dust, or if at all if at all there is any fume, you can see in that photo there is fume. So what is he doing? He's covering all his vital parts so that this fume does not harm his eyes or his body, right? So in any manufacturing process, if there is anything that is causing any injury to workers, then again I should take effective measures to prevent such improper things which are causing harm. So here he is putting this shield so that he does not inhale this particular fume. Okay. Also, I should install some exhaust appliances. You can see in your kitchen also you install an exhaust appliance so that you do not breathe in the fume that is coming out of the cooking process. So it is the same way in the factory also. If there is any dust or fume, we should take proper measures. Next, talking about artificial humidification. So if you're increasing the humidity in the air, okay, so then you should also take proper measures so that all the people in the factory are properly safeguarded from any of the harmful effects that could be caused because of this humidification. Also, state government gets the power to prescribe any standards that you need to follow if you are doing humidification. They will also regulate the methods. So see, your humidity can be increased by some machines or anything. So all these methods will be prescribed to you, will be regulated by the state government. Also, they will tell you some certain tests that you will have to do so that you keep seeing if this humidification is being done properly or not. And every time you record what is the humidity that you are increasing in the particular air of a factory. Okay. Also, they will also prescribe you some methods for secure ventilation. So whenever this humidity is coming, at that time also you should have proper ventilation. Like you can see in the photos, there is humidification also and there is light also, right? And there should be cooling of air in the workroom. So wherever workrooms are there, every time the cooling of the air should also happen. Okay, so this is about artificial humidification. I hope you understood this point easy,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Next, moving ahead, we are talking about overcrowding. Like you can see in the photos, there are a lot of people working in a particular factory. Okay, so this is also not safe. So here they have prescribed that every factory should have at least 14.2 cubic meters of space for every worker. So you cannot overcrowd any workroom because that will also cause suffocation to people. Okay, so this is about overcrowding. I hope this is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So moving on to the next one, we are talking about lighting. So we spoke about ventilation. Ventilation is about passage of proper air. Lighting is about every factory should have proper light. See, if I don't have proper light, what will happen? I can fall down if I can't see anything, right? There can be risk of accident. Okay. Also, it will cause strain to your eyes. If you don't have proper light and if you're studying also, it will cause eye strain, right? So that is the reason I should have proper lighting. Also, sometimes what happens if you put lot of light also, that is also again harmful to your eyes. Lot of light is also harmful to your eyes. So if I'm installing any glazed windows, or if because of any glare that the light is a lot, okay, I should try to secure such things. Okay. So there should not be lot of glare also. And I should install some glazed windows or skylights used for lighting. They should also be clean, both inside and outside, and they should be free from obstruction. Suppose there is any window and I'm placing an almirah in front of the window. So there is no point, I won't be getting the light, no. So all these things should be free from obstruction, and the lights and skylights. You can see skylights in big corporate offices, right? So all these should be cleaned in regular intervals of time. So that is about lightning. I hope it is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So let's go to the next one. And here we are going to talk about drinking water. So every worker should be provided a supply of drinking water at suitable points. It's not that I'm providing drinking water very far away. I should place them in suitable points. And suppose if I'm having more than 250 workers working in my organization, in my factory, then I should also provide them cool drinking water in hot weather. Okay, so if I have more than 250, then cold drinking water also in hot weather. If I have up to 250, then if I provide them drinking water, that is enough in suitable locations. I hope this is also clear.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
let's go to the next one. Now see, it is not like I'm putting the water can just next to my washroom, or I'm putting it inside my washroom. These things should not be there. So you should properly place them at least 6 meters, at least 6 meters away from any washing place, any urinal, any latrine, or any spittoon. What is a spittoon? A place where people come and spit. So it should be at least 6 meters away. So you can see in the photo, he is measuring. So this is the pit latrine. So from there he is measuring this. The drinking water should be placed at least 6 meters far away from such place. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So moving on to the next one, we are talking about latrines and urinals. So latrines should be accessible for everybody whenever they want. I should not lock them. It should be available for everyone. Also, it should be separate for both male and female. There should be proper light inside. It should be clean. Okay, it should be, the sanitary measures have to be maintained, and then I should also employ some sweepers who can come and clean all this. And if I have more than 250 workers, then they should also be washed and cleaned at least in every 7 days with detergents and disinfectants. Okay, so at least 7 days I have to use detergents and disinfectants to clean or wash these particular latrines and urinals if I have more than 250 workers. Otherwise, there should be a person, there should be a sweeper. She should keep it all, she or he should maintain it in a clean manner. It should be lighted. There should be sanitary measures taken, separate to both female and male, and it should be accessible at all times. So that is about latrine and urinals. And then talking about spittoons. So sufficient number of spittoons have to be maintained, and they should be in clean and hygienic condition. You can see the spittoons example over here, right? Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Should we go? So whenever there is any hazardous process that you're using in your factory, then you should go and take the permission from the state government. So the state government will grant you a permission. See, suppose initially I'm starting my factory in which I'll be using a hazardous process, then I will go to the state government. Or suppose I already have a factory. I already have a factory, and now I want to do some process which has a hazardous process. Now I want to start something which is hazardous. Then also I will go to the state government for permission. So what the state government will do, it will appoint a site appraisal committee. So it will appoint a site appraisal committee. So these site appraisal committee are going to come, they are going to examine my application, and they're going to make a recommendation to the state government within 90 days from the receipt of my application. And they also have the power to call for any information. So they want any information from me, they can ask me. So once I provide the information, they will give all the report to the state government, and like the state government will give me permission. Suppose if the application is already approved by central government, suppose central government is already giving me permission, so in that case, again, I need not take the permission from state board of pollution authorities. So I need not go to this pollution authorities again, because Central government has only given me the permission directly. So I hope you understood about hazardous process.
Yes, ma'am.
Right now we are talking about some responsibilities of occupier. We have already seen who is a deemed occupier in the first part of the lecture. Now we are talking what are his responsibilities. Okay, so here we are going to mainly talk about 5 responsibilities that this occupier has. So this point is related to what is the responsibility of the occupier if there is hazardous process in the particular factory. So if there is hazardous process, whomever employees he has to maintain their health records. Okay, he has to maintain their health records, and he will also appoint an experienced person. See, suppose for the first time you're going into the kitchen and you're cooking, your mother is going to be there next to you and she's going to guide you so that you will not harm yourself. So just like that, if at all I'm involving any hazardous process, there will be an experienced person in the factory, so that if that hazardous substance, if something happens, he will be there to handle it. Okay, so that is the responsibility of the occupier, to maintain the health record and also to appoint a experienced person to handle this hazardous substances. What else does he do? Occupier has to lay down a detailed policy. So he should have a detailed policy about how is he going to take care of the health and safety of the workers. Is he taking any insurance? What is his plan? Does he want to provide any weekly treatment to the employees? So all these things he should have a detailed policy. Also, he should disclose all the information. See, suppose he's hiring me for a hazardous process, he's supposed to tell me. He's supposed to tell me that this is the harm that can be caused to you. Okay, these are the measures that you should take so that you will not be part of this hazard. Okay, how are you supposed to handle the materials? How is the manufacturing process done? How is the transportation of these particular materials done? How are we going to store them? So all these information the occupier has to give to the workers at all times. Also, moving ahead, he should also draw up a site emergency plan and disaster control measure. So as you know, any mall that you visit also, you see they will give you some emergency exits in the aeroplane. Also, once you get onto the aeroplane, they tell you, so these are the emergency exits. If something happens, this is how you do it. So just like that, in a factory also, he should draw up an emergency plan, and it is not his work will not end there. He should make sure that everybody also knows. Suppose if there is any emergency, how are you supposed to behave? What are you supposed to do? What are the safety measures that you will have to take up in case of emergency? So he has to communicate this to everybody. Also, he should lay down some measures to the workers and general public, whoever are living near the particular factory. So we have seen this Vishakhapatnam gas leak also. So not only the factory members, the people who were living in the vicinity, they also got affected. So whatever measures that he is taking, he should publicize it to everybody. Is that clear?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So moving to the next one, this was a question that was asked for 5 marks. What are the responsibility of the occupier? So we have already studied the 5 points. So these are the 5 points that you will have to write in the exam. So moving on, we are also talking about some of the welfare measures. We already spoke about a welfare officer. So like that only, there are some welfare measures also that a factory person has to ensure. There should be washing facilities. So you can see the washing facilities in the picture. They should be separate for both male and female, and they should be clean and accessible at all times. I think this is self-understood. Then moving ahead, we have storing and drying clothing. Okay, so sometimes what happens, these workers, they come in their own clothes, they change their clothes and they wear their work clothes and they work in the factory. So whenever they are changing, so whatever clothes that they got from the house, there should be a facility where they can store these particular clothes and where they can store or dry these clothes if at all they are wet in the working of the environment. Okay, so when not worn during the working hours, there should be a place where they can store it. The state government can also tell you some of the measures that you will have to take in order to store, in order to provide facilities for storing these clothes. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So see, if people are standing for long hours, we should also provide them some facilities so that they can sit for a while. Okay, so that is about facilities for sitting. So moving ahead, first aid appliances. So first aid appliances should always be there in the factory, and it is not that it is only sufficient for one person. At a time, it should be sufficient for 150 workers. So see, suppose if something harmful happens, it is not only one person. Many people in the factory can get affected. So it should be sufficient for 150 workers at a time. And I should also have an in charge who is readily be accessible. Now, who is this in charge? This in charge is a person who has a certificate of first aid from the state government. So if they have this certificate, then I can appoint such person as an in charge in my factory handling this first aid appliances. Suppose I have more than 500 workers in my factory, there should be an ambulance which should be readily available. So moving on to the next one, here we are talking about canteen. If there are more than 250 workers, then the factory should also have a canteen. Okay, see, in the canteen you can have tea, coffee, or any of these items. So when a worker is purchasing these items, he can pay the money. But apart from that, if there is any other expense which is there to handle this particular canteen, if they are borne by the employer, then they should be borne by the employer. Suppose I'm not taking any expenditure to into consideration to fix the cost of food stuff. See, there are some lot of expenses in incurring or to run the canteen also. So if I'm not taking that expenses to calculate the price of the food stuff, then this expenses will be borne by the employer. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Then moving ahead, shelter, restrooms, and lunchrooms. So you can see in the photo, this is the shelter room. Restrooms means there can be a bed or where the workers can come and rest. So if I have more than 150 workers, and then I should have shelter, restrooms, and lunchroom. These should be properly lighted, ventilated, and should be clean and in a cool condition. So next, talking about creches. So you can see, so if there are a lot of women, that is, if I have more than 30 women working in my factory, and if these women have any children who are under the age of 6 years, then in the factory, wherever these creches are there, the child will be taken care by an in charge who is trained in the care of children and infants. So you can see in the photo, there will be an in charge like this, and she will be taking care of all the children who are under the age of 6 years of all the working women in the factory. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So here we are going to talk about some precautionary measures that have to be taken in every factory if at all there is a condition of fire, in case of fire. So as you know, first thing, any factory, they will have to prevent the fire from happening in the first case. Suppose if there is a fire, then they should also have a fire escape. So in the malls also you see that there is a fire exit. So just like that, they should also have a fire exit or fire escape, and they should have all the equipment and facilities for stopping this fire. So one of the equipment you can say is the fire extinguisher also. And also that there should be workers who should be trained so that they can escape. It is just that if suppose I put a fire extinguisher and nobody knows how to use it, so there is no point, right? So I should provide a training to my workers also how to exit. Also, if the state government wants to give any directions, they can give. And suppose if the chief inspector thinks that whatever arrangements you have done are inadequate, then he can also give you some directions about how to do the arrangement in case of fire. So that is about fire case. So I hope this is understood.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go to the next welfare measure. Here we are going to talk about working hours of adult. It is very simple. Any adult cannot work for more than 9 hours. Okay. So not more than 9 hours are your working hours per day. And also at once, that means suppose at a stretch, the maximum working hours for you should be only 5 hours. So after 5 hours, again, I will have to give you rest of at least half an hour. Okay. So again, after half an hour, I can make you work for 4 hours, because at one day on one day, I can only make you work for 9 hours. Okay, I can also do it like this. I can do 3 hours, then I can give you rest, and then again I can make you work for 3 hours. Again, I can give you rest. So, like this, also we can keep doing. Okay, so this is about at a stretch, I can only make you work for not more than 5 hours. Then moving ahead, 9 hours plus rest should not be more than 10.5 hours. Okay, so in a day, suppose first I made you work for 4 hours. Okay, then let's say I made you work for 3 hours. So first I made you work for 3 hours. Okay, then I have given you a rest. Let's say I've given you a rest of 45 minutes. Then again I made you work for 3 hours. Okay, and again I gave you rest of 45 minutes. Okay, then again I made you work for 3 hours. So how much is this coming up to? 9, 10.
9
It
point.
is crossing 10.5 hours, right?
Yep.
This is 10.5 hours, I think, right? 3, 3, 3, 9,
Yes,
9,
yes, yes.
and this is 10.5. Suppose here I say instead of 45 minutes, I give you 1 hour break. Okay, so this will become 10 hours 45 minutes. So which is more than 10.5 hours, right? So it should not be a case like this. In a day, your working hours plus rest should not exceed 10.5 hours. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And in a week, I should not make you work for more than 48 hours. So in any day, if I make you work for more than 9 hours, or in any week, I make you work for more than 48 hours, then I should pay you overtime charges. Is that clear? So which we will study later. So that is about this working hours. I hope it is clear. So let's go to the next one. Now we are going to talk about weekly holidays. Okay. So as you know, it is very simple. What is the first day of the week? First day of the week.
Monday.
Sunday is the first day of the week. Okay. Sunday is the first day of the week. Generally, Sunday should be a holiday. Suppose I'm not giving you Sunday as a holiday. Then what are the 3 days after Sunday?
Wednesday.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? The 3 days after Sunday are Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. What are the 3 days before Sunday? Before Sunday?
Saturday, Friday, and Thursday.
Saturday, Friday, and Thursday. So basically, they are saying if I don't give you a holiday on Sunday, I can give you a holiday on any day of the week. Okay, either 3 days, any of the 3 days after Sunday, or any of the days immediately preceding the Sunday. So I should give you one day off, weekly holiday. Okay. Suppose I'm not giving you a holiday on Sunday and I am giving you a holiday on Wednesday. Okay. So Wednesday will be called as substituted day, right? So instead of Sunday, I'm substituting your holiday on a Wednesday. So Wednesday will be called as a substituted day, right? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So suppose as a manager, now I want to call you on a Wednesday to come and work in the factory. Can I give you a call on Wednesday in the morning and ask you, hey, come and work today? No.
No.
So I should give you one day earlier a notice. I should at least give the notice one day earlier before the weekly holiday, if at all I want you to come and work. Okay. So one day earlier to the set date is nothing but a Sunday or the substituted date, which is Wednesday. So before that, I should tell you, I should inform you that I would want you to come and work. Okay. So I should deliver a notice to the inspector also, telling him that I want you to work on your weekly holiday. So I should deliver a notice to the inspector also. And this notice will be displayed in the factory. So I will not call you and tell you, I will put it on the notice board, and then it is deemed that it is communicated to you. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So next we are going to talk about compensatory holidays. Okay, as you know, in any month generally we have 4 weeks, right? So generally 4 holidays, weekly holidays you should get. Suppose in the first week you have taken a holiday on Wednesday. Second week also you have taken a holiday on Wednesday. Third and fourth week I did not. Let's say on the fourth week also you have taken a holiday. But in the third week, I made you work on all the days. So whenever I'm not giving you a holiday in any particular week, you can take that holiday in any of the days in this month. In this month, you can take your leaves. If at all you're not taking in this month, then immediately 2 months you can encash. You can take this particular holiday which is belonging to this month in the immediately next 2 months also. So that is about compensatory holiday. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So let's go to the next one. Now we are talking about shift duty. Okay. Basically here we are talking about night shifts. Okay. So whenever I am doing a night shift, in that case also I should give 24 hours holiday to the person whoever is working in the night shift. Okay. Now tell me one thing. Suppose let's say a person is working in a day shift only. Let's say he is having working hours from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Okay, so let's say this is Saturday. Generally, what happens? His leave starts from 5 p.m. 5 p.m. say he'll be free. Yeah. And the whole Sunday he will be free 24 hours. Right? And on Monday also, he will be free till 9 a.m. Right? Basically, this is all the holiday that he is getting, which is one day, so here it is there, right? So just like that, if a person is working in a night shift, so let's say he is working from 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. Okay. So in this case, when does his holiday start? So in the case of a night shift, as soon as his shift ends, this will be considered as if the next day has started. This will be considered as if the next new day has started for him. Is that clear? So from here, suppose this is Sunday morning. So his shift will end on Sunday morning at 3 a.m. No. So from 3 a.m. full Sunday he will get. Yes or no?
Yes.
Full Sunday he will get. And Monday also he will have time till 6 p.m. Right? Yeah.
Yes.
This is whole Sunday from 3 a.m. to 12. Yeah. And then from Monday also in the morning till 6 p.m. he will have a weekly off. So that is about a shift duty when it comes to night duty. Okay, so here basically they are telling as soon as the shift ends, from here we will consider as if his new day has begun. So he will get 24 hours holiday. Okay, he should also get 24 hours holiday. Okay, so any time that he has worked, see from 00 hours in the midnight till 3 a.m. This is actually a Sunday, no? Actually, Sunday has started, no?
Yes.
So we will not see that Sunday has started. We will see that this is part of previous day. His day will start from his shift ends. So from there, he should get 24 hours holiday. So that is about shift duty. I hope it is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
So moving ahead, suppose if there is any work, so work should not be carried out if in shifts more than one relay of workers is engaged in the same kind of work at same time. Now, what is this relay? What is this shift? Shift is nothing but shift is related to your time. Okay, relay is related to the group in which that you are working. So a person can only be a part of one group at a time. He cannot be part of two groups, right? And he can only be part of one shift, not more than one shift over here, if at all he is working in a relay. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So moving ahead, we are going to talk about overtime. As I told you, in any day, if he's working for more than 9 hours or 48 hours in a week, then he should be paid overtime wages. And overtime wages will be 2 times of the ordinary rate of wages. Suppose ordinarily I pay you rupees 1,000 per hour. So here, suppose I work for 2 hours extra. So I should pay you 2 into 1,000 into 2 hours. Right? Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So basically my overtime wages will be rupees 2,000 per hour. It is double the rate than what it is normally. Moving ahead, double employment. So any worker cannot do double employment. He is restricted. Why is this? Because some people, they work from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Again, they take up another employment from 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. So because of this, the worker's health and everything, and he will also not be able to do the work properly, right? So that is the reason double employment has been restricted as per Factories Act. Is that clear till here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So moving ahead, like how you have your class register, like that also in a factory, every occupier has to maintain a register, especially for adult workers. Okay. For children also, they should maintain a register, which we will see in the next particular topics. But here we are talking about an adult register. So in this, we'll write his name, who all are the workers there, what is the nature of work they're doing, the group in which he's included in which shift does this group work, and any other particulars. So all these things should be put in the register of adult workers. So just like how the work termings are there for a man or for any adult, the same thing will be applicable for women also. So they are also the minimum working hours for them the maximum working hours for them also can be 9 hours, and at a stretch 5 hours, and maximum 10.5 hours along with break in a day, and 48 hours in a week are the same things that are applicable to women also. But the only difference over here is women cannot be called before 6 a.m. or they cannot work after 7 p.m. So they should only work between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. But suppose now these days we see that women also go for night duties, right? So in that case, I should take the permission of state government. So if at all I'm calling any women in between 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., I need to take the permission of state government. Also, suppose I want to change the shifts of any women. Okay, I want to change. Suppose this week, let's say 3 days, the woman has been working from 10 a.m. to let's say 6 p.m. So suddenly, if I want to change her shift, suddenly, if I want to change her timings, I cannot change. Okay, I can only change her timings after there is a holiday. Okay, whether it is a weekly holiday or any holiday, only after that holiday I can change her timings. Otherwise, in a week, whenever I want to change a woman's timings, I cannot change. So this is about employment of women. So from here, we will stop this video here. From here, we will cover it in the part 3. So I hope this lecture was helpful to you. If you like this video, please like, subscribe to my channel, and any doubts you have, you can put it in the comment section. I will get back to you. Thank you everyone for watching. Have a nice day.